Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this conversation with alumni of Shakespeare in Prison. I am Franny Shepard-Bates, the program's director, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you tonight. Before I turn it over to Lee and our fabulous panelists, I'd like to share a quick description of the program for new friends who've just learned about us and old friends who might like a refresher. Shakespeare in Prison is Detroit Public Theater's signature community program. We've been working with ensembles of incarcerated people since 2012, using Shakespeare as a catalyst for empowerment, whatever that means to each individual. Since 2018, we've also worked as mentors with program alumni on the outside on all sorts of personal and professional development opportunities, including paid work with Detroit Public Theater, including tonight's event. You can find a lot more info on our website. Shakespeare in Prison's Assistant Director, Matthew Van Meter, will be posting links in the chat box as we go, starting with that link. We will begin this evening with a panel discussion, followed by ample time for questions and answers. Please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to post questions as we go. No need to wait until we get there. Now, I would like to introduce this evening's facilitator, Lee Thomas. Lee is a longtime anchor and entertainment news reporter for Fox 2 Detroit. He has won 4 Emmy Awards as an anchor and producer and is an Associated Press Award winner and member of the Broadcast Film Critics Association. And we are so happy to have him here with us tonight. Take it away, Lee.
Franny, thank you so much. And first of all, everyone that is on board with us, thank you so much for checking us out. And this is going to be a lively, heartfelt conversation about something that is close to my heart. And I'll explain what I mean. First of all, Lee Thomas, Fox 2. I'm a reporter, anchor, movie critic. I've been in Detroit for 23 years and counting. And so I'm happy to be part of entertainment in any fashion. But the Detroit Public Theater is something special. And this program is truly something special. Shakespeare in Prison gives things to prisoners that you would not think of putting together. The Bard, Shakespeare, his many works, and incarcerated individuals. But the combination of the two is something that is very special, that not only enhances lives, it entertains, and it also grows you in a way that you did not expect. So for me, my introduction to Shakespeare happened many moons ago when I was younger, and I had an affinity. When I was much younger, I didn't think I would like Shakespeare at all until I got into the words and understand the commonality and all of these things that the panelists, our expert panelists, are going to talk about. And when I speak of the panelists, I am referring to a group of people that just make me smile listening to them in the prep for this special event. So let me introduce our panelists. First of all is Sierra Bayers. She was 6 years in prison. She was part of Shakespeare in Prison for 5 years. Now, she played Cassio in Othello, Richmond, and Richard III. She lives in Grand Haven, Michigan, where she works at her family's mom and pop restaurant. She is a contributor to Shakespeare in Prison. And by the way, Shakespeare in Prison initials are SIP. So if you hear anyone refer to SIP, it means Shakespeare in Prison. And also they have something very special that Sierra is a part of, and that is an upcoming critical edition of Richard III, which I've looked at a little bit of it, and I cannot believe how cool that project is and is going to be. So Sierra, give everybody a wave and say hello.
Hey, everybody.
All right, I appreciate it. We'll get back to you in a moment. Oh, real quickly, do you have one favorite Shakespeare line? 30 seconds, real quick, one you want to share.
Yes, I do. This is my favorite line. You sleep in peace, the tyrant being slain. If you do fight against your country's foes, your country's fat shall pay your pains the higher. If you do fight in safeguard of your wives shall welcome home the conquerors. If you do free your children from the sword, your children's children quits in your age. That is my favorite line.
And where is that from?
That is from Richard III, I believe. No, Othello.
Nice. Othello, from Othello.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I don't know that much. I'm not to correct you. It sounds right to me. So let's push forward. Next, we're going to introduce Asia Johnson. Now, Asia was incarcerated for 9 years. She was part of Shakespeare in Prison for 7.5 years, which is just great to me. Now, she's played Ariel in The Tempest and Romeo and Juliet. Of course, she was Juliet. Bianca in Othello. She lives in Los Angeles, where she is part of the Bail Project's Communication Association. Now, Asia is also a poet and a recent recipient of several prestigious fellowships. She's a contributor to Shakespeare in Prison's critical edition of Shakespeare III as well. Asia Johnson, please say hello to everybody. I think you have to unmute yourself. There you are.
You didn't put the mute and the stop video so close to each other because, yeah. But my favorite line or couple of lines is definitely from Romeo and Juliet, where I played Juliet, and I just identified so much with her as a young girl being in love. And one of her famous lines was, oh Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? And people's first inclination is to think that she's like, where is he? But that's not what she was saying. She was saying, why Romeo? Why have I fallen in love with the enemy?
Asia, look at you. Boom, dropping that knowledge just like that. And that's the thing, when you, on initial thought of hearing Shakespeare, the interpretation is so wide open and rich that it just adds to it. Well done. Well done. Thank you very much. All right. Next up is Matthew Luan. He was incarcerated for 13 years and has been part of Shakespeare in Prison for 2 years and part of the Shakespeare in Prison ensemble. Now, Matthew has played Sebastian in The Tempest, Lago in Othello. He is Goneril in King Lear, and he lives in Metro Detroit, where he works as a welder, building his own business, spends a lot of time with his family. Matthew, say what up to the people.
Hello.
You got a favorite line you want to share with us, man?
I do, actually. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother.
My brother. Well done, my friend. Well done. Well done. And last but not least, Ricardo Malloy. Or Rick, he said I can call him Rick. Rick was incarcerated for 23 years. He's been part of Shakespeare in Prison for a year and a half, and he's played the Duke of Cornwall in King Lear. I like that. He works as a dispatcher, a route analyst for in the trucking industry. He's pursuing a bachelor in business administration. He's the co-founder of a prayer ministry, and I love that as well. Rick, say what's up to the people and share one of your favorite lines if you can.
Hello, everyone. I guess last shall be first. And my favorite line is from King Lear. Lest it see more, prevent it. Out, vile jelly. Where is thy luster now?
All right. All right. You put it down like that. Go ahead, Rick. Good job, man. Good job. All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you getting us in the spirit and getting us in the mood. So everyone watching, I like to detail how we're going to have this discussion, and we try to break it up into 3 parts for you guys. The first part is going to be about personal experience with the SIP program. Second part will be why Shakespeare, why theater, and even why the arts in prison, because it's not a lot of something that people would think of. And then also the third part will be the effects of programs like this on society. So that is the way we're going to break it up. We'll have the discussion for about 45 minutes to an hour. Then after that, we'll give you guys an opportunity to ask questions of each other, and of course the audience to ask questions of our panelists. So let's jump right into the personal experience, and I'll start with you, Sierra. You know what? I'm gonna flip it around. I'm gonna start with Rick this time, since I did Rick the first time. So Rick, let's start with you and talk about incarcerated for 23 and a half. You maybe make sure I said a half, because each day counts, my brother. I know how it is. So let's talk about what got you into, when did you, during your sentence, learn about Shakespeare in Prison? And when did you become part of it, and what got you involved?
Well, what got me interested in Shakespeare, I've always been one that loves reading. And Shakespeare is a mystery to a lot of people. So when I finally got to Parnell, and I'd heard about it before I got there, but when I finally got there and was able to get involved in it, I took it as another challenge, because there are so many groups and self-help groups and things to do that mean nothing, that you're just there for a certificate. But this was something that was about me personally trying to conquer something of myself.
When you say concrete something of yourself, what are you talking about? Speaking in public, being able to interpret words, interact with other people. What kind of things were you trying to conquer?
It was more along the lines of me learning how to open myself back up.
Nice, nice. You said Purnell. Was it not offered where you were previous to Purnell?
No, that's one of the problems. Some of the good programs are only at select prisons. It's a lot of prisons in Michigan, especially for the males. You know, it's like 32 male prisons, and you spend time going from one place to another a lot. So when you get somewhere that has a good program, you want to get there, you want to stay there.
Let's shift to, I'm going to go guy, girl, because that's just the way I think. So let's go to Asia. Asia, when did you learn about Shakespeare in prison during your term when you were incarcerated? And what made you become part of the program?
I learned about Shakespeare in prison probably about 8 months into being at Women's Huron Valley. And I honestly was really lonely, still feeling very broken. Hadn't really learned to accept the fact that I was in prison. And one of my friends would get up in the morning and she'd leave 2 days out of the week. And it was wintertime. I'm like, where is she going? That's so important that leaves. Like, she was one of my only friends at the time. And so I'm like, I'm here. I'm not talking to very many people. I was very much so in a shell. And when she came back and she told me where she was going about this amazing group of women and facilitators, and I was like, well, what are you guys studying? And she said Shakespeare. And I was like, I'm there. And so we started trudging 2 mornings out of the week at 8 a.m, going all the way to the other side of the compound to not only learn Shakespeare and perform Shakespeare, but just like be in true community with other people.
Now, a lot of people don't understand how things work when you're incarcerated. And you said trudge to the other side of the compound. And give people an understanding of what it's like to do something in a prison, because it's not just like you get up and go, oh, I'm going to go over here and just walk over there and do it. You talk about the process of going over there to be part of it.
I want to start with the fact that from the moment you open your eyes, like for me, it was like this just cloud of sadness. You're not home with your family. You wake up and it's the same day, the same people, the same routine, and there's not a lot of motivation to get out of bed. But when you have a program as amazing as Shakespeare in prison, like that does give you the, juspa that you need to get up. And as far as like walking across the compound, like there are 2 sides, the east side and the west side. And I happen to live on the east side, and the programs building where programs are held is on the west side. So you have to walk about a half a mile to get over there, and in the snow, if it's raining, if it's 100 degrees outside, like you're out in the elements.
And you have to, is it a fitting it in your day? Was that part of it, or what your scheduling wasn't an issue?
Well, you don't really get to pick and choose when you can go and when you can, you don't get to choose when you leave and when you come. Like everything about prison is about power and control. But if you do happen to be a lucky one that gets into a good program, then that comes on your schedule and you're able to leave your unit to go.
Able to leave a unit to go. All right, let's talk to Matthew. Matthew, when were you introduced to it in the process of being incarcerated? What was your first introduction to Shakespeare in prison? Where did it come from, and why did you join?
It's actually a funny story. So I had a real bad social anxiety because I was stuck in a hole for over 2 years, and I didn't really talk to nobody or anything like that. And when I got out, they shipped me off from a level 4 straight to level 2, then went to a level 1 in less than 6 months. So I didn't have a chance to adjust. So when I got
Matthew, real quickly, I hate to interrupt, but for the layman out there that doesn't know what the whole or level 1, level 2 means, what are we talking about?
Oh, well, level 4 is a higher level. It's a higher security level. And level 1 is you got a little more freedom and whatnot.
Oh, you have more freedoms. Okay.
Yeah. And the whole is basically disciplinary.
Like solitaire.
Yes, and I dealt with solitaire for almost 2 years because I'm hard of hearing, so I couldn't really talk to people through the doors or whatnot. So I just made my own little world there. And well, when I got to level 1, I made some friends, and they were a part of the first play, and they were recruiting to get the second one. And I was like, well, no, I don't want to do this or anything, because I don't want to be around people. But they tricked me. They're like, oh, we're all going to be there. We got a whole crew together. We'll be there. I'm like, okay, well, I'll be there. So I showed up there, and there's a whole room of people, and not one of them were my friends. So yeah, and they showed up. So I was like, well, I'm here. Let's see what this is all about. Like, I really wanted to leave, but I just stuck it out because I've always been into the arts. So I figured I'd give it a chance, and here we are now.
It's amazing because initially you hear Shakespeare, and especially when I was younger, before I got involved with theater at all, you hear Shakespeare and you're like, what? That's totally not me. But they tricked you and you stayed.
Yeah, I figured I'd give it a shot. And Franny is very charismatic. So
Franny's the director, yeah.
Yeah. So I stayed. It was very entertaining in the beginning, and then I knew I needed to do something, and I see that this will work for me, and it has. As long as you trust in the process, give it a chance. It does work.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that process and how it works coming up in just a little bit. But let's turn to Sierra real quick and hear her story. Sierra, what brought you to the program, and where you were incarcerated during your time being incarcerated? How long did it take you to get to the program? And once you got to the program, what got you to stay, Sierra?
I also have an interesting story how I joined. Well, when I first got to prison, you got to be, quarantined for so long. And as soon as I hit grounds within a week, like Asia was explaining earlier, we get pieces of paper, telling us where we go and we got to be there, so on and so forth. And I woke up one morning and it said Shakespeare, and I was just like, what? I never signed up for any of this, because sometimes you just got to sign up for things. So I go because I wanted to get out of my unit, and I get there and it's just so many people I've never even met. Like, everybody was brand new to me. And when I had figured out what was going on and like what they were kind of about, I was, kind of like him, like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to stay. But there was another individual, an inmate that had actually was like, no, she's so cool. Like, she's got to stay. Come on, please stay, do some lines, do some weird little scenes that from movies and stuff. So I ended up doing a Napoleon Dynamite scene, and
I love Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah, I did the chapstick. So after that, like Matthew had said earlier, Franny, she's amazing. Franny is amazing. And between her and another inmate and a few other people, I was like, you know what? I don't know why I got put on this call out, but I'm going to stay. And I found it to be, it's not meant as therapy, but for me, it was very therapeutic. I was able to find myself and my traumas that I had gone through as a child, as an adolescent, as an adult, and I was able to shine through all those issues through the characters. And that's why I stayed.
Now let's talk about that for a minute. And let's stick with you, Sierra. When you're there, when did it click for you? In the rehearsals, going through the dialogue, interacting with other people? When did it click for you when you knew something special was happening?
For me personally, I just felt it. It just felt right. I felt like this is where I'm meant to be. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I'm meant to be, not only to help myself, but to help others. I've always wanted to help others, no matter what the situation was, and that's just where I felt my calling was to be.
Asia, I'll let you jump in here with this one, because this, you talked about the introspection of this, and talk about from isolation to a stage. Those are like opposites. So talk about how this process helped you with the introspection and the anxiety?
It definitely, I think the light bulb clicked the second play that I was a part of, which was Romeo and Juliet, and feeling so close to the character of Juliet and feeling, just this overwhelming sadness for the love story part aspect of it. And I had, my own traumatic relationships in the past, and, coming to prison, relationships, familial, romantic, friendships, like they kind of get put on pause. And so not only did I feel this great connection to that story, but like everyone has said, Franny and Matt, they just have this this deep caring that you can feel in your bones. And you don't get that from officers. You don't get that from therapists. You don't get that from the warden. That love, and I hate to say the word love because there is no love in prison, but if there's something very special that Franny and Matt have, and it goes beyond William Shakespeare. I wasn't there. I came initially for a friend. I got interested by William Shakespeare, and I stayed because of the women that are part of the ensemble and the facilitators.
Rick, let's talk about the Shakespeare himself, because for me, I felt distant from Shakespeare until I actually broke down the words. And I'll give you guys my favorite line from Shakespeare. It's, I shall attend her here and woo her with such spirit when she comes. Let's say that she rail, well then I'll tell her plain. She sings as sweetly as a nightingale. And I read that the first time and I said, what's this dude talking about? Then one of my friends that was also in this class with me said, he just said, what's up, girl? I'm like, what? Is that what he just said? Are you kidding me? And so the words connected me to these guys from centuries ago. And that kind of connection, I mean, it talked about the human experience to me, Rick, and maybe you can address that yourself. Did you have that kind of realization?
Definitely, because as you read through Shakespeare, and like you say, once you break down the language, what people don't understand is that Shakespeare is still relevant today. He is still copied over and over. So my nephew is amazing, and he was watching some show, and I told him, I'm like, yeah, that came from Shakespeare. And so now I've been able to get another generation who wouldn't have even thought about it interested in Shakespeare. No, it's an ongoing thing to continue giving, to continue educating those that are coming behind us. Because it took me to go to prison to be educated about Shakespeare and to find out that I really like Shakespeare.
Matthew, I'm gonna come to you real quickly. Well, not real quickly. We got time, man. Don't be real quick. Take your time. But talk about when you quoted one of your favorite lines, Matthew. You talked about a band of brothers. Talk about the connections that you made, perhaps with others, if those connections exist. I don't want to assume anything, but talk about the connections that being part of a theater group and a Shakespearean theater group brought to you.
The connection is beautiful. I made really good friends. And the amazing part about it is that there's such a huge diversity.
Yes.
And there's people that, that we would never talk to each other in prison or even outside of prison. We're two totally different worlds. And the beautiful thing and the magical thing about prison theater is that we work together. You have opposites working together and everything's clicking and you guys are making magic, and it's a beautiful thing. And that's a really big part of why I became obsessed with it.
You say obsessed? What do you mean? Obsessed with quantify obsessed? What did you do, man?
I became the resident Shakespeare nerd.
What does that entail?
Well, a lot of the guys there, a lot of the new guys that were coming in the future plays that we've done, they came to me for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was great. It shows that I'm doing something right, and I'm able to contribute to help others. I was able to help them with their, um, to help explain their character, help them with the language, come up with ideas, and yeah.
Sweet, sweet. I'm going to move into our second section real quickly and move into the second section and talk about why Shakespeare, why theater, why the arts. Now, for me, as an African American in America, with 80% African American, Hispanics, all that, in prison, I have family members in prison. Most of us do. My brother, my nephew. And one thing that was very important to me was to continue to feed their mind. I'd send my nephew books. I would write him a letter just to continue to engage him, to let him know that feed your mind with good things, feed your mind with positive things. And so talk about the arts, because and somebody already asked this, and I'll ask this question now. I saw it come up in the chat. And real quickly, you can go Sierra, Asia, Matthew, then Ricardo in the same order. Once you guys got out, did you still do you still participate in theater, first of all, this year?
Yes, I do. I took a break for a second. There was a lot going on in my life at that time, but when I first got out, I definitely I jumped right on it. Franny gave me a call or a text, and she's like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I said, "Absolutely." When, where, what do I got to do? How do I got to get it done? And I did it.
Asia?
I actually just finished a film that I wrote, produced, and directed.
All right,
So
now.
I am really still deeply, deeply involved in the arts.
Matthew?
Oh yeah, well, Franny gave me a call. I asked her if I want to do a small project with her, and I jumped right on it. I'm also a musician, so I stick with my music. I write,
Nice.
I draw, I paint. So yeah, art is a part of my life.
And Rick?
I don't get a chance to get involved in as much as possible, but every time Franny calls me, because I love Shakespeare and I love this program. So as much as possible, I do. And you got to remember, we are still recovering from a pandemic.
Yes.
So it's not as readily accessible as I would like.
All right, so let's talk about, and I'll stick with you, Rick. You're incarcerated for well over 2 decades, man. Talk about the impact of the arts specifically on a life incarcerated. What has it meant to you? What has it meant to some of your friends? What is the importance when it comes to the arts in prison?
Arts are the bright spot, in such a dark society, just to, like Matthew draws and stuff like that, and to see some of his artwork and go to concerts where they're performing music and guys are getting a chance to express themselves. And you can look in their eyes and you can see their energy has changed, and it's a freedom in being able to express yourself through art. And a lot of that is missing in prisons today because it's not everywhere.
I say arts in prison. Shakespeare in prison is one of the first programs I've heard of. What else is there? In your experience, the different places you were at, was there anything else?
Nothing like Shakespeare.
Someone asked this question. How does reading Shakespeare rate with some of the other things you read while you were in?
It takes a while to get the fluidity of Shakespeare. But once you get that, and like I said, it's musical once you get it down correctly. And
yeah, it is.
I can get lost in a Shakespeare play because I can play every character because I can see myself in every character.
Asia, I want to jump over to you and talk about the art specifically, because you talked about how you were isolated. Now, someone who is insular, isolated, not really social, I said this earlier, to choose something that puts you on stage in front of a bunch of people having to speak would seem like a choice you would not make.
Prior,
Talk about that.
prior to my incarceration, I was very social, very life of the party, very, down to make new friends. But, after, going through a trauma that landed me in prison, I really went into myself. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel human on any level. And being able to go to Shakespeare in Prison or other arts organizations like PCAP, and Eastern Michigan has a poetry workshop. Some of these things, some of these spaces were the only spaces where like Rick said, that you truly felt free and where you truly felt human. And so I found my humanity again in Shakespeare in Prison, definitely.
You talked about this is a quote from you. Art connects you to bigger things. What does that mean?
I mean, sometimes prior to my incarceration, I was a college student. I didn't think about people behind the wall. And it wasn't because I didn't want to, it was because I just was so in my own bubble. And I think there's so many of us, especially during the pandemic, have just been in our own bubble and can't see beyond our own experiences. But art can connect you to somebody in another time, in another place, in another mood. And it just expands your heart and it expands your mind. And you just learn, you're constantly learning about yourself and about the world through art. So I think that it's imperative that programs like Shakespeare in Prison exist in prison, because if it's supposed to be rehabilitative, we need to come home fresh and renewed, and we should have learned and grown. And you can't learn and grow if you're sitting in a cage 24/7. Like, that's just not possible. So it's these arts projects that really bring home for us, the people that are inside, things like our humanity, our freedom, and learning on another level.
Matthew, I want to talk to you real quickly and maybe take a step back to the productions itself. Talk about, for someone, we don't have any video to explain, so maybe you can explain it for us. What is it like? You go to rehearsal, you have costumes, are you on a real stage? What is it like, and who are you performing to? Break down a production for us, Matthew.
Oh, well, we didn't have a stage. We used the auditorium, the gym, and we ended up getting costumes, and just the process of it, it's crazy. Everything's always running around. You got people trying to figure out the lines. We're trying to figure out clothes. We go through, little dry runs here and there, but it's a nonstop movement. It's constant movement, and it's exciting. It's really exciting, and it gets your heart going, And this is when you realize, I'm like, this is the real thing. And we our plays are for the staff at the prison and the other inmates, and it's really exciting. It is.
Talk about costuming. I know that Shakespeare, those dudes wore dresses. They wore wigs. Were you guys able to get real costumes?
Yeah, I was in a dress. That was handmade for me. It was black lace. That's when I played. I was Goneril in King Lear.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome.
Hand fans.
That is truly awesome. And the best part is, when you're on stage, what's the feeling?
Nervousness, but determination to get it right. But as the play goes on, the more you're out there, you become more comfortable, and then you start feeling the feelings you had during rehearsal and the connections that you built with that character, and then it's fluid after that.
That translate into once you walked out those doors?
Kinda. I'm still having I still have a little hard time being out here, but yeah, I'm just kind of going with the flow, and just I try to overcome every obstacle that comes in my way. It's through this program that helped me and gave me the tools to deal with out here. I spent over a decade in prison, and I was really institutionalized. I still have moments, but I know now how to work with them, overcome them. So, yeah, this is a wonderful program.
Thanks, man. Let's talk to Sierra for a minute, Sierra. Talk about being part of the program, and you seem very gregarious to me. You seem very outgoing. How did that play when you were doing the productions? And did anything you learned on stage translate to the outside, Sierra?
Okay, so ADHD, everybody forgive me. I let me answer for when I remember. For me, when I'm on stage, when I'm in Shakespeare, I was kind of like that hype man. Like I was that one, like, you got this, you can do this. You know what? I will help you remember your lines in a way where I'm saying them for you. So that way it kind of like jars your memory, even though I'm still shocked to this day how I can remember the lines as well as I did, because I couldn't even remember what I ate for breakfast that day. So for me, it was like, as soon as I'm on stage or even right before a play, I'm always like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like I'm freaking out inside, but I'm like, you guys got this. You are great. You are doing a wonderful job. You look wonderful. Like I was just always that guy. Well, guy. So it was always like, okay, I'm with my family. This is a family for me. I know what I need to do. I'm going to forget all my lines on stage. I'm going to forget all my lines on stage. But as soon as I get on stage, it flowed. It just happened. And I just felt like I was sharing a piece of myself with the viewers, with the people that were able to come and see us.
That's good. Talk about, did being on stage, learning the lines, being part of a show, does it translate to anything you do out here?
Yeah, actually, when I'm at work, I do the same thing. I'm just that, hey, yeah, you guys are all doing great. You look great. You're doing wonderful. You're flipping that burger perfectly. You wrapped that burger so well. Like I've always been like that hype man, that, love yourself kind of person.
Here, I'm gonna stick with you for a second because you said something that rang to me, and it was actually talking about Franny. Was it Franny and Matt, or Franny and one of the other people who helped facilitate?
Franny and another inmate.
And another inmate.
Yes.
What was it about Franny? What is it about the steps of the program? What is it about Franny that makes it special?
Immediately, her energy. You just immediately feel that charismatic, loving, no judgmental, very patient, but like at the same time, she's kind of all over the place like a squirrel, which is great because I'm the same way. So it's like we kind of it was like an immediate click. Like I just immediate felt like you are somebody I can confide in if I'm not understanding something, if I need a little bit more work on another thing, if I'm just having a bad day. Like she was always that kind of like that go-to, her and the rest of the cast. But immediately when I first joined Shakespeare, that's what got me to stay.
Now I'm going to ask Franny to pop in for a second, if she can, and I want to have one question for her, and then I'm going to go to the questions from our Q&A because I see we have 8 questions already lined up. But Franny, I want to talk to you about the process for a moment. Talk about the process of what happens when an incarcerated individual comes into the community room, the auditorium, the gymnasium, wherever that place is. What's the process to educate them, get them prepared to go on stage, and get them prepared to perform? What is that process?
So it's actually, so we do a lot of work in a circle. I think is a really, really important thing that we do is that we don't create a division between like audience and actors at first. We'll sit in a circle and we'll read and discuss the play. And this process usually takes about 9 months. And we'll read it, discuss it. We'll do different ensemble building exercises so that we can form that community and form a circle of trust in a place where it's really rough to trust anyone or anything. And as we'll make our way through the play, and then and I think one of the most important things we do is that we don't teach. is that there's no, we dismantle as much hierarchy as we can within our group. And we say everybody's interpretations of this play, no matter how you're interpreting it, where you're coming from, like that's what we love about it, is where do you come at this play? Like Rick was saying, could see himself in every character of the play. And so when we're all listening to each other, then we finish the play, we cast it collaboratively, we have no director, and then we rehearse it together for a long time. It's a long rehearsal process, but that's part of the messiness, is part of its value. And then we'll perform it usually 3 times for that audience at the prison. And then we'll take a break. Toward the end of the season, the ensemble chooses the next season's play. And then when we come back from our break, that's the play we're working on.
Well, congratulations. It's one of the signature programs for the Detroit Public Theater. It's a special thing. And thank you very much. I'm going to go to some of the questions from our audience. And let's see, this one is from Kelly. What were some of the aspects of yourself that you discovered and or developed in the program, and how do these skills help you fight the mental stress of the industrial prison complex? Asia, did you hear all that?
I did hear all that. I think, wait, maybe I didn't hear all that.
let me go to it again. See what Kelly, it says, what are some of the aspects of yourself you discovered / developed in the program, and how do these skills help you fight the mental stress of the industrial prison complex?
Okay, so I've always been a diehard, hopeless romantic. I'll do anything for love. I have severe abandonment issues. I had a long list of trauma. And so working through characters was really my way of working on myself, especially with Juliet. I realized I don't want to die for love. And I need to love myself before I'm in a position where I can love anybody else. And just the strength that comes through, and the courage and the inspiration from other ensemble members to get up on a stage, because yes, the women's ensemble had a stage, to get up on stage and perform and be vulnerable. That wasn't something that I was really used to doing, and not something that I really thought I wanted to do in prison. But those skills and those tools that I learned while in the program have definitely helped me in my life post-prison.
Sierra, I saw you reacting to her, the first part of her answer. You want to jump in there? The industrial stress of prison. What would you like to add?
Well, it was funny because I didn't realize these questions were for everybody. So I'm over here I'll answer this the best I can. But I can totally relate with Asia with that. I'm to this day a hopeless romantic. I've kind of pushed it away some, but recently I've kind of started to allow myself to come back to that hopeless romantic side of me. But for me, I didn't realize just how damaged of a young lady I was until I started to not only just read the lines, but actually understand the lines. I really started to understand that not only did I need to change a lot of things in myself, but I needed to specifically change how I interacted with others. And the biggest thing, which I'm actually still working on, is loving myself. And looking back at it now, that's when I really started loving myself, was when I was actually becoming these characters, so to speak, when I'm on stage and understanding their lines and stuff. I realized just how damaged I was, and and how I was just a people pleaser and just doing all these things that were very unnecessary at the time. And so with a lot of what Asia was saying, I was definitely there, very bad. It became toxic.
All right. Matthew, I'm coming to you next with the next question.
Yes.
This question is from Kyle. He says, do you have a specific memory where you felt a shift in your outlook while doing Shakespeare in prison? That's from Kyle to you, Matthew.
I remember the moment too. We were going through a rehearsal when we were doing The Tempest, and I had an opportunity just to step back and just reflect And I realized that I made a lot of friends. I made a lot of connections with people. I've realized that everyone had an influence on me in one way or another. And it was like I said before, like there's a lot of us that were like total opposites, but we all accepted each other. And through that, I realized that I was actually a part of something, and that my goal is to be a better person now, because now there's people come to me for help. So I need to be a better person, to be as an example that, you know, people, everybody has a potential, but a lot of people, they ignore their potential. Now, there's people that you might think are bad, but once you see that, you know, their true gifts and the potential that they have with them, you don't see them as that bad person no more. You see them as a human now. You know? And in that program, you know, we are treated as a number. That's it. We're not a human. We're a number. In there, we are human. And with each other, how we interact and we build something together, we are humans doing this. Well, why not be a good human?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Here's another question, and I'm getting this one from the chat. I think this one is coming through from the chat. This is a long one. I will read it. And Rick, so listen up. I'm going to point this one in your direction. Some say life is a theatrical performance. I believe that the ability to put on various masks and connect with different identities are beneficial for educational employment in society. Did your prison theater experience help you upon release? And I'll add to that. And how, Rick?
It definitely did, because like Matthew has said, we learned to interact with people that without this program, we would have never even spoke to inside the prison. So getting out, and especially for me being gone so long, trying to re-enter society and trying to get a job, trying to interview with people, trying to just live life, and you realize how hard it is. But because I've had the ability to play different characters, I'm able to interact with anyone in any arena now. It gave me a comfort about myself to be able to have a conversation with the president of my company when he walked through. I would have never thought about doing that before.
You know, that's interesting you say that, Rick, because that's one thing that is so theater, because it's not you, you're playing someone else. You really have to look another human being in the eye that is arm's length away from you and tell them words that have meaning. And if you've never done that before, or never had a positive exchange like that before, this can be a very cathartic thing to do. Did that happen with any of you, where you're standing on a stage giving this emotion to someone and you realize, I can actually do this in my life? Go ahead, Sierra. You gotta unmute yourself.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I was trying to hit the button, but my little thing kept popping up. Yes, actually, that's something that I strive for. Like I said earlier, you know, ever since I was a child, I've always wanted to just help people. And with technology these days, I'm able to actually do that now. And I'm actually able to, even as small as just put a smile on somebody's face, or help them realize that loving yourself is more important than looking for love.
Mm-hmm. This question came in a few different forms, and I read it in the Q&A, and 3 different people asked this one, and you can just pop your hand up if you want to address this one. How did the other incarcerated individuals react to you when either you were performing Shakespeare or they found out that you were part of Shakespeare in prison? What was the reaction from the others? Who wants to jump on that one? Don't everybody jump at once. There you go, Rick, you got it.
Okay. First, there's always going to be somebody who's going to talk about you, regardless of what's going on. So it's always going to be some negative chatter, or, you know, that's BS or whatever, you know. You always
There's
go
always, Rick, there's always haterade, man. Always
always
haterade.
haterade. You know, like my grandma used to say, they talked about Jesus.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but for the most part, you get support. Like after we did the play, and like Franny said, we do it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So after that play, for weeks and weeks and weeks, people were like, man, what's the next play? When y'all doing next play, man? When can we see it again? And I never realized that so many people, it was such support from the prison community itself outside of us, because they want something different too.
Huh. Hey, Rick, how did that make you feel? You said, how did that make you feel when this, you know, sometimes it's the same dude is like, you doing that Shakespeare jump. The same dude, like, when is the next one? How does that make you feel when you see the reaction?
It feel like I got him. Shakespeare got him. Shakespeare probably got him.
What do you mean by got him, Rick?
What I saw.
I see you smiling, Matthew. You got a story about that as well?
Oh man, I wore a dress. I even had a corset.
I had a corset too. So what was the reaction? What was the reaction?
Well, I mean, it was a mixed reaction, but it was all good. There's there's a lot of people that, you know, I made a lot of comments and jokes about it and that. But I was really amazed at how big there was a supportive community with the inmates, you know, and they were excited to see more. And then they see how we're doing it, and you know, we give our all out there. We don't hold anything back, and they just start lining up. Want to sign up? When's the next one? How can I be a part of this? You know, actually, I was trying to recruit as many people as I could.
Asia, you're involved in the arts now. On the other side, obviously, this had an impact on you. When you first were incarcerated, can you see the Asia that's sitting here with us now? How far away was this Asia from that younger Asia that went in?
Young Asia that went in was like, my life is over. Every day was like, why try? Like, what's going to be, what is my life going to look like if I make it through this and actually go home? That was like the first 6 months of my thinking, like, is it even worth it? Can I get through this? And then after a couple weeks in Shakespeare and like just being on stage and being treated like I'm not my worst act, I'm more than the mistakes I've made, I'm not defined by this, then I started to see light at the end of the tunnel. And I'll never forget, like, I think it was Matt, who I had gotten a rejection letter. Yes, it was definitely Matt. But I got a rejection letter for one of my poems from Columbia University in New York. And Matt went to grad school in Columbia. And I mean, Matt's a writer. So of course I went to him and I was really bummed. I'm like, I'm never going to write again because I'm so dramatic. And, you know, Matt really took the time and sat with me on the stage, like just sat down one-on-one and was like, the fact that they wrote you such a detailed letter saying why you were rejected means that there's potential. And so I started to see myself through Matt's eyes. Like, I am not this horrible person. I have a future and it's probably brighter than what my imagination can foresee right now.
And talk about the creative world you're in now. You're a poet, you write. Talk about the creative space you're in now and how some of the things you learned during SIP enhance what you're doing.
You know, like, it really taught me how to deal with conflict. And there's always going to be conflict everywhere in the workplace, in your personal life, but it's how you deal with that conflict that really sets the tone. And the pre-SIP Asia was like, if I don't like you, I don't like you, and I'm not talking to you. If I don't like a situation, I'm going to leave it. But now I actually work through conflict. And whether it's how am I going to get enough money to make this film, I'm problem solving and I'm thinking about, you know, a path instead of just quitting. So I think one of the biggest takeaways from SIP is don't quit.
All right, now, I like that one. I like that. I wholeheartedly believe that myself. You're still in the game as long as you're in the game. But when you quit, you've taken yourself out of the game. And that is something that I'm staying in the game till they kick me out, Jack. Let's see. I'm going to go to some more of these questions. This is from Angus. He says, when did it happen for you when reading or seeing Shakespeare may have been the impenetrable or so old-fashioned or hard to understand, to seeing Shakespeare as relevant and something you wanted to be part of and realize the language, characters, and plays were so great? When did that happen for you? Do you remember a moment in rehearsal, a moment in the conversation pre-rehearsal when you go, okay, I got this. I think I got this. Who wants to try that one? Asia, go ahead.
For me, this wasn't the first moment, but it was one of like a light bulb moment. When Othello killed Desdemona, I kind of was like, this man built this great life. He was respected in his work. People loved him. And he rose to the heights. He rose to every occasion to every, but he had his Achilles heel, and that was love and betrayal. And when he killed Desdemona, I was like, this resonates today. Like, people are still like trying to like work through things in their lives to stop them from doing harm or causing harm. And people still make mistakes and they still cause harm. But again, I kept thinking to myself, like, wow, this is going to be, if this was a real life case, Othello's legacy, not all of the accomplishments that he's, been able to achieve, but the fact that in a moment of passion, he made this horrible mistake. And I think that was like something that really resonated with me.
What a fantastic message. What a fantastic message, all the great things he did, but that one, and sometimes emotion and passion just, how it goes. Let me hop in here and see if I can get another question from our audience. I'm sifting through these guys, so bear with me. Here's a good one from Lucy. She says, did you instantly like the scripts of all the shows you did? And were there any that maybe you didn't like at first, but learned to love? Let's let Sierra jump on that one. Sierra, did you instantly like it, or was there some scripts that you're like,
Yes, no. I besides the language, like that was really the only thing I didn't like, because I'm not used to speaking in the ways of Shakespeare. But I have always, since high school, I've always loved Shakespeare. Just like with Asia, she was saying how Romeo and Juliet, most common high school play that the English teacher would go through. So for me personally, I loved every second of Shakespeare. I just strongly disliked the fact that I had to remember to read it in a rhythm. And with me being like loving music and stuff like that, rhythm should have came easy for me, but speaking in rhythm, it wasn't catching on super quick for me.
But it seems like it caught on. You speak in rhythm naturally.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me see if I can grab that question. I was going to direct it to Matt, I believe. Let me ask Matt, what do you say to people who say that Shakespeare isn't relevant because he's too old /white /British /whatever? What do you say to those people? And I'll add to that list, some people just say it isn't cool. What do you say to those people who have all that list of why not to do Shakespeare? What's your answer, man?
Shakespeare, all his writings are relevant to this day. The language might be different. That's the only thing. The situations, the emotions, the intense feelings that people have and what they go through in his plays might be a little dramatic, but it still holds true to this day. Julius Caesar, political. That's basically everything that's going on right now. Othello. It's Iago. He has this thing that he's mad and he wants revenge because he was passed over. So he came up with this whole plan to ruin this man. I mean, how many times have we been in that, or people that we know that done that or been through that? Everything that Shakespeare has written is relevant to this day. And there's so many movies out now and in the media that they quote Shakespeare and not a lot of people catch it.
You hear it now, don't you?
Yes. So yeah. It is completely irrelevant to this day and age.
Sierra, I see you. Go ahead.
Yeah. All I'm gonna say is with Shakespeare, don't knock it before you try it. That's really what it is. Like, do not knock it before you try it, because once you actually try it and just give it a chance, it literally changes your entire life. The way you view things, the way you think, the way you start living your life, like it really does change your life.
Go ahead, Matt.
Can I add into that too?
Yes.
So in Shakespeare, when he writes his villains, he writes it so that there's an empathy for that person. There's a reason why this person is being like this. And so many people are able to connect to it. So you can't really be mad at that villain because you understand what he's going through. They might make a big show out of it, but those emotions we all connect to. And it gives you other people an opportunity to understand that, we are ex-cons, but we're not bad people.
Right.
And through this, it can open up eyes to see it's like, well, okay, they did a bad thing, but maybe there's a reason behind it, So, we are not our crime.
Absolutely.
And Shakespeare showed me that. And that's I when I talk to people, that's what I try to preach about.
A good sermon to preach, a good lesson to give to people. And I have to jump on this one because, and I'll let Asia or Rick, since you guys haven't said anything, and you can apply to this question here. It's elaborating on the last question. A lot of people say there's no brothers in Verona, there's no black people in Venice. Until the Moor of Venice. So who wants to address that one? Did anybody ever say that to you? And what was your response? Who wants to do that, Rick or Asia?
Rick, you can go. I'll go after you.
I haven't had that response, but for those who say there are no black people in Venice or wherever, and this is no disrespect, black folks is everywhere. I'm everywhere. We've been everywhere,
Yeah.
And to me, those people are the small-minded people who refuse to rise above a situation to see how beautiful Shakespeare can be, regardless of color, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of anything.
I'm going to make a comparison between Shakespeare and the sport of tennis. So tennis has always been like an aristocratic, back in the day, like, for rich white people. And it took Serena and Venus to like come through, start winning for people to like, and it's still like a very, like buttoned up, like
exclusive club. Yeah.
Exclusive club. And I feel like for so long, Shakespeare has been an exclusive club. And we are busting that exclusivity all the way down and showing that it is for everyone.
Yes,
and for those people who do try to keep people of color or people, that may not have a lot of privilege out of that.
Whatever color they come in, yes.
Exactly, whatever color they come in. It's up to us to make our own table. And that's what SIP did. Like if there's not a seat at the table, you got to get your hammer and your nails and make your own table and pull out that Shakespeare and get what you can get out of it.
Very nice. Well spoken. Well spoken. Let me go deep into the questions. I don't want to miss anyone here. Let's see. This is someone just giving you guys kudos. So I'll just read their comment. M says, I love how impactful this has been for all of you. The way your eyes light up when you're talking about this is truly beautiful. Just because you guys did prison time, things like this prove you aren't bad people. And kudos to you all for taking a chance with something so great. That is from M to all of you guys. So I know you guys are individually in your houses when we're on TV, go ahead and do your snaps, however you do it. Or when we're on TV, I say, pardon me while I reach around and pat myself on the back and give me some love. So, yeah, give yourself some love on this one, because I completely agree with all of that sentiment. See if I can find another question in here. After rehearsals, do you attend live theater? That's from Bert. Oh, I'm sorry. After release, do you attend live theater? Did this get you into live theater, or I know Matthew and Sierra said you guys play music, so you guys are probably part of live events. But this and Asia, you talked about your involvement as well. But I'll let you individually answer this one, and we can start with Sierra. Did this get you into live theater once you were released?
I mean, no, I haven't been able to get into live theater. But like I said, like, you know, the internet is, you know, it gives you opportunities. And with the music thing, I've had to turn down a few things because, you know, I've got stipulations. I am on parole, so I can't just join a band because, you know, nowadays it's mostly just in bars and stuff like that. So, but I am, you know, Matt and we were talking earlier, we might come up with a Shakespeare band. So
I love it.
Got
And
my
Matt,
bass guy over here.
Yeah, she mentioned you, Matt, so I'll let you go next. Did it get you into live theater?
Actually, because of COVID, everything's been closed down, and I haven't had an opportunity.
Online though, I watched the National Theatre in London. I watched their whole entire productions on YouTube.
So I'm kind of obsessed with YouTube, and I've been looking up all kinds of old plays. I've been watching a lot of old Shakespeare plays from the 50s.
Nice. Nice.
And then there's like certain scenes. So I'll watch different styles of that scene, so I get more of an idea on how other people are doing it, and take a little bit here and there to see how it feels when I do it.
Matthew, I have to say, you have a specific look, man. Has anyone, when you tell people your love for Shakespeare, what's the biggest reaction you've got?
They don't believe it. And then I have to like spit out quotes and everything. And I get hyped when I talk about it, and I draw a lot of people in, you know.
I love it, man. I do. Never judge the book by its cover. Absolutely.
Exactly.
All right, let's see if I can get to this question. I'm going to rephrase this holiday question for two. For Asia and Sierra, which plays connected with them the most as women, and how? That's specifically for Asia and Sierra, obviously. You want to go first, Asia?
I'll go with Othello and Romeo and Juliet, because Othello, I played Bianca, who was just seen as some, you know, harlot, but I saw so much more in her. She was just a woman who wanted to love someone, and like she saw outside of the image. It's kind of like being a formerly incarcerated person. Like, people look at you one way, and you have to prove time after time after time that that is not the box that you live in. So even when you fill out a job application and it says, have you been convicted of a felony? Like, I haven't had to do that yet. I mean, I have a job, but I haven't had to like check yes and then get denied. But that question shouldn't be asked. And so I just think about some of the characters like Bianca, who was, you know, a prostitute, who was so much more than that. And I saw so much more in her. And for Juliet, just, you know, being a young 14-year-old girl in love and thinking that the sun rises and sets on one human being. And those are the two plays that resonated with me as a woman.
Sure.
Well, that's kind of a little more difficult for me to answer. I always played male roles, but in playing the male roles, I actually found a little bit more of my feminine side in that, because I was also expressing that damaged child, that damaged little girl for so many years, actually speaking out through these male characters. Kind of like how, you know, Matthew was in a dress. He was playing a female role. I'm sure you can kind of, you know, you can kind of relate to that. But I would have to say Richard III and Othello. Those were the two, especially when I played Cassio. He was like that lover, that hero, that, you know, that people pleaser, that go-getter kind of guy. And that's how I always was since I was a small child. I was the caretaker, the people pleaser, you know. So in a sense, I kind of found my feminine side through Cassio mostly. But personally, I would just have to say it really just depends on what you went through growing up, what you're struggling with, and personally which character and which story you related to the most. It just really depends on the person and the story.
I just got it to flip this the question around to the men, Matthew and Rick. What play, what character, and how did it affect you as a guy? Matt, you want to go first? Matthew, you want to go first?
Yeah, actually, when I played Iago in Othello, well, I spoke on this before. The big impact was growing up, I was always looked at as the bad guy. And so through this, it's like not a lot of people actually knew me. You know, they didn't know that I got feelings, the stuff I think about, the good things I do. They just always look at the bad things. And that's been most of my life. So when I played Iago, I completely empathized with him because he was Othello's number one guy. He was his top general. Well, his soldier. You know, he did everything for him. He sacrificed so much for him. Then he got overlooked, and just the feelings that was. And I've gone through that plenty of times. So yeah, Iago, that was like one of the biggest characters that affected me the most. And yeah. But then there was like when I played Goneril, a female. Yeah, it was interesting wearing a dress. You know, but I owned it, and it I mean, it didn't make me feel any less than a man. Actually, it made me a little more proud that, you know, it's like I am able to do this and keep a smile on my face, not complain about anything. Actually, I was running with it. I was geeked about it. And and it opened other people's eyes up for them to be more open during our rehearsals and when we all get together and talk. So now more people are talking about, you know, their issues, their feelings, everything. So I loved it.
Nice, man. Nice. Rick?
And I'm gonna say different characters, although I didn't get to play the character in King Lear. The character who risked banishment to tell the king the truth. You know, who is always the one that's going to tell the truth, and no matter what the consequences are. If I'm your friend, I'm your friend to the end. You're making a mistake, you're doing wrong, and risk the consequences of what may happen. So that's the character that I most resonate with.
I want to talk about this for a second, and any of you guys can chime in on this one. It's about the importance of art in not just in society, but behind those walls. If it didn't exist, just talk about the importance of having art in the system. And you guys talked so much about being able to express these emotions through characters, putting yourselves in positions to open up in ways you hadn't opened up before. If this opportunity didn't exist, do you think you would have found this somewhere else when you were incarcerated? Did it exist? I see you shaking your head, Asia. What's your thought?
You know, art, and it sounds so cliche, but every single program that I was a part of that really made me feel free and human, those are the programs that saved my life. Because prior to joining Shakespeare in prison, again, like I had been in prison for less than a year. And for most of those days in that year, I was thinking about how am I going to end this for myself? Because I had years ahead of me to do before I, was even eligible to see the parole board. And I just could not see, before participating in these programs, I could not see getting through that time.
Yeah. Who wants to address that one as well? Matthew, go ahead.
Being in prison as an inmate, you don't have a voice. So your art is your voice. It is ability to show love, pain, connection. It's an ability to express, and other people can see that because in there nobody hears you, and through the art, that's your voice.
You know, I've heard that Asia said the same thing. I think you said there's no love in prison. People don't hear you. You don't have a voice. You're regimented. All of these things. Matthew, talk about before this. When you used your voice before you were part of Shakespeare Prison, what were you saying? Now using your voice after, how's it different?
Back then, before Shakespeare, there was a lot of anger and poor communication, and you get overwhelmed with those intense feelings, and after Shakespeare, you learn to think before you talk, think before you act, think about what you're about to say, understand what the situation is, and instead of blowing it up, work it out. Focus on the solution and not the problem. And that's
interesting, man. You're blowing me away with these words, Matthew, because I can see somebody sitting on the outside going, dude, how does Shakespeare teach a dude in prison that? That's amazing to me that art can do that. How did it teach you that?
It's a powerful thing. It's getting together with everybody, sharing, opening yourself up, understanding other people, understanding their pains, and just being a band of brothers. We take on each other's burdens, and it makes you appreciate them. When you have something good, you don't want to lose it. So you become a better person to hold on to it.
We'll go to Sierra on this one. I see you nodding, Sierra, but you guys talking about getting to prison and being isolated, not knowing everybody, and you're this gregarious person. Were you shut down before you started your Shakespeare? Or were you able to be all of you that you found doing Shakespeare in prison?
Well, before Shakespeare, I was being a pretend me. I was that beyond obnoxious, I'm going to be the funny guy. I don't really care what people think. But it wasn't to a point of intentionally getting in trouble. Because at least in the female prison, like sometimes it was just the minute things that you just instantly got a ticket for, you locked down, and they don't care. But as soon as I got involved with Shakespeare, that's when I was like, I need to stop pretending. Like, even though this is an acting thing, I need to stop pretending. And so I need to really
you found your authentic self through pretending to be a Shakespearean character.
Yes. That's where it started to open up for me.
Wow.
And I guess at least, I don't know how the men's prison is, but at least in the female prison, I know Asia can definitely attest to this, but the whole judging a book by its cover, I looked like a little boy in prison. So I was either extremely targeted by the officers or the complete opposite. Whereas a female that didn't look like a little boy, so to speak, they didn't get treated as targeted. So I really had to be walking on eggshells most of the time. And like I said, once I actually got into Shakespeare, that's when I was like, you know what? I need to grow up. I need to, there's an image, a different type of image, not what they see, but there's a different type of image that I need to portray and that I need to start focusing on, which is acting right. Don't start the opposite defiant thing and do the complete opposite of what I'm told, because I had a lot to lose. I had a really good job and I didn't want to lose Shakespeare at the time, because that was really that was my personal escape. That was my 3.5 hours of me, of Shakespeare, of that family, that bond.
Yeah,
Can I add to that?
absolutely, absolutely. Running late on time, but absolutely. Go ahead, Rick.
Just to everything they have said, I definitely agree with. And the one thing that Shakespeare allows you to do to be able to, like you say, become your authentic self, because it allows you to be vulnerable in front of others. And once you learn to be vulnerable in front of others, that gives you the courage, the strength to be yourself.
Yeah, that is so true. That is so true. Vulnerability can lead to empathy, can lead to compassion, which always leads to understanding. So that is a beautiful thing. Right now it is 8:22. We have 3 minutes left. I'll give you, before I hand it back over to Franny, and I'll start in the order that we begin with. 30-second final thoughts. Somebody who's watching this saying, what can I do? What kind of final thoughts would you like to leave with the audience that's listening about Shakespeare in Prison and its importance? Sierra, you go first.
Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Do not be afraid of figuring out who you are, what you love, and what you would like to do in the world. And I would strongly suggest, if you can't do that alone, contact any of us Shakespeareans. We are all one big family, and we are down to sit and throw some lines together, and really figure out who you are, who we are.
Nice. Asia.
I think I just want to let people know, and I think people already know this, but we're all of us are just figuring it out as we go along. And I think that getting rid of labels such as inmate, ex-con, felon, like we are so much more than that. And I think once people can see past those labels and see us for students of Shakespeare, or just simple people figuring it out, I think there will be so much more empathy and so much more understanding. And I think that that's what the world, and that's what we all need. We just want to be understood. And
Yes.
So just do one kind thing today and ask somebody a question that you've been wanting to know about them for a really long time. Like, just be courageous and ask it. And they'll probably be like, I've been dying to get this off my chest. I don't know.
And ask that question in the spirit of love and compassion, and it'll take you to the right place. Matthew.
I'd say, it's a common theme that we have here. Be open to everything. Open yourself up. Do not keep yourself in a small little place. There's diversity out there that is a wonderful thing. And through this program, you will experience it. And it's just the amount of weight that will come off your shoulders once you open yourself up and just do it. It doesn't matter if you're bad, just do it. People always need to build up. You need a starting point. Build up from there.
Absolutely. Rick?
I would say, and the same thing everybody said, that was just a chapter in my life. I'm a full book. I got more chapters coming.
And that's a great way to leave it, Rick. I appreciate it, because that leads me right to one of the things that I'd love to mention. The critical edition of Richard III is something they're working on. It's an original manuscript. Shakespeare in Prison is part of the Detroit Public Theater. You can find all the information you need at DetroitPublicTheater.org, and that's theater spelled with the R-E at the end, not E-R, just so that you get it right. But before, and to all the panelists, thank you for sharing openly, being kind, doing your Shakespeare for us. We appreciate you sharing your hearts and your words, Shakespeare words. Great job to everybody. Thank you so much to Courtney, to Sarah, to Matt, to everybody at Detroit Public Theater. I love you. I support everything that you're doing with Detroit Public Theater, and thank you for letting me moderate this great panel of great individuals. Everybody was so giving and so kind, and we appreciate everybody for tuning in. And last thing that I'll leave with you guys is Fox 2 News Thursdays and Fridays from 8 to 11 is where you'll see me, Lee Thomas. I'm the entertainment reporter there. So thank you for sticking with us. And with that, thank you guys. And I'm handing it back to Franny. I'll give you guys some snaps and some applause. Yeah. All right now. Franny, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you so much, Lee. Thank you so much for facilitating this conversation. I feel like I've known these folks for years, and I feel like I just learned so much. So I hope that everyone here enjoyed. One thing I do want to mention that hasn't really come up is that, since last March, we have not been able to work with our program inside of prisons in Michigan, and we're still waiting and hoping that the day comes soon and we'll be able to go back inside. We do continue to send activity packs based in Shakespeare, where it'll be some text from a play, and then different prompts for different activities folks might want to do, things to think about or write about, talk about, draw, write a poem, direct a play, whatever. And so our work out here continues apace, and we're still connecting with folks on the inside as much as we can. So I am going to say goodnight to you all now. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Lee, Rick, Matthew, Sierra, Asia. Yes, Shakespeare forever. If you would like to support this program, which is the signature program of Detroit Public Theater, Detroit Public Theater is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we welcome any kind of contribution you might want to make at our website. And that's, I think, all I've got. The goofiest sign off I could possibly give, maybe. Thank you.
Whooshes for everybody.
Yay.
Whooshes for everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone.